Tonight, we're peeling back the curtain on a global phenomenon who has managed to do the impossible, survive the transition from a viral child prodigy to a legitimate, independent musical powerhouse in 2026. Most of you remember the 7-year-old girl who stood barefoot on a stage in Norway, her voice sounding like a reincarnated soul from the jazz age. But as we sit here today, the image of that innocent child has been replaced by a calculated, sophisticated artist who is currently navigating some of the most complex legal and professional waters in the industry. While her voice remains a velvet balm for the brain, the headlines surrounding her lately haven't been about her music alone. Instead, they've been focused on high-stakes lawsuits, sudden disappearances from major competitions, and whispers of unseen threats that forced her to go into hiding during the peak of her 2025 season. It's a story of a young woman fighting for her creative soul in an industry that prefers its stars to be seen and not heard, especially when there's millions of dollars on the line. But before we get into the glitz of her recent Las Vegas residency, we have to talk about the corporate earthquake that started it all. Because behind that serene smile, Angelina Jordan has been quietly dismantling the very machine that made her famous. The biggest question circulating in the music industry right now is how a talent as massive as Angelina Jordan ended up operating outside the traditional major label system. In early 2025, industry insiders were shocked when news broke that her relationship with Republic Records, a titan that houses names like Taylor Swift and Drake, had reached a freezing point. Reports suggest that the conflict stemmed from a fundamental disagreement over her 2026 albums, Secret of the Soul and Secret of the Star. Sources close to the production claim the label wanted a more radio-friendly, generic pop sound, while Angelina was adamant about keeping her jazz fusion roots and songwriting integrity intact. This wasn't just a minor tiff. It was a battle for the brand she had built since childhood. By choosing to release her recent work independently, she took a massive financial risk, essentially betting her entire career on the loyalty of her digital fanbase. While many predicted her numbers would tank without the corporate marketing machine, the opposite happened. Her 2026 releases have dominated streaming charts, proving that the YouTube-born generation of artists might not need the gatekeepers anymore. However, this independence came at a cost, as several major tour slots mysteriously vanished shortly after her departure from the label, leading some to wonder if the industry was trying to blackball the young star for her defiance. But that corporate Cold War was only the beginning of a much more public and much more expensive legal nightmare back in her home country. If you want to see how high the stakes have become, you only need to look at the legal filing from the Norwegian broadcaster NRK. In a move that stunned the European music community, Angelina Jordan was officially sued for over 130,000 NOK following her sudden withdrawal from the 2025 Melodi Grand Prix. For context, this is the competition that decides who represents Norway in Eurovision, a stage that could have catapulted her into the stratosphere of pop royalty. She was the undisputed favorite to win, but then, in a move that felt like a plot out of a thriller, she disappeared from the roster just days before the national final. The broadcaster didn't hold back, claiming a massive breach of contract that left their production in shambles. Her legal team countered with a narrative that sounded almost too dramatic to be true, citing personal threats and security concerns that made it impossible for her to perform. While her family initially mentioned the chaotic Los Angeles wildfires as a contributing factor for their stay in the U.S., skeptics pointed out that the fires and the competition dates didn't perfectly align. This discrepancy gave birth to a wave of online speculation. Was she truly in danger, or was the threat actually a strategic move to avoid a contract that she felt was no longer in her best interest? The legal fallout continues to haunt her 2026 schedule, serving as a reminder that even the most talented artists aren't immune to the fine print of the contracts they signed as minors. And yet, just as the controversy reached its boiling point, she reappeared in the most unlikely place, the neon heart of the American desert. In January 2026, the Westgate Las Vegas became the epicenter of the new Angelina era. This residency wasn't just a series of concerts. It was a total rebranding effort designed to kill off the prodigy image once and for all. Gone were the simple white dresses and the timid stage banter. Instead, audiences were met with a woman who commanded the stage with a sophisticated, almost haunting maturity. But the transition hasn't been without its critics. Some of her long-term purist fans expressed shock at her more modern wardrobe and the elevated ticket prices, which some claimed were out of touch with the humble beginnings of her YouTube channel. There were also reports of technical glitches during the opening nights, mic cuts and lighting failures that some conspiratorial fans suggested were deliberate sabotage from former associates who were unhappy with her Vegas success. Despite these hurdles, the residency has been a massive financial windfall, reportedly grossing millions and solidifying her status as a top-tier live performer. She's no longer the girl singing covers in her bedroom. She's a headliner in the entertainment capital of the world. But even with the glitz of Vegas, there is one thing that she refuses to change, a detail that continues to baffle those who don't know her history. Because for Angelina, the shoes she refuses to wear represent a promise that is far more important than any Vegas contract. We need to address the elephant in the room that has been looming over her 2026 tour, the persistent rumors regarding her safety. Throughout 2025 and into this year, there have been several instances where Angelina's public appearances were canceled with little to no explanation, often followed by vague statements about security protocols. While some dismiss this as a celebrity trying to create an air of mystery, others point to the very real dangers that come with being a child star who grows up in the public eye. There are whispers in the industry about a specific stalker or a group of shadow figures who have been shadowing her family since her time on America's Got Talent, the Champions. This would explain why her mother and manager are so fiercely protective, often keeping her location a secret until the very last moment. Some industry analysts suggest that the security threats cited in the Eurovision lawsuit were actually 100% legitimate, and that the singer was advised by private security firms to stay in the United States where she could be better protected. If true, it paints a much darker picture of her success, one where every standing ovation is overshadowed by the fear of who might be watching from the wings. It's a classic gilded cage scenario. She has all the fame in the world, but she might not even have the freedom to walk down a street in her own hometown. Yet, through all this tension, she remains anchored by a philosophy that started on a rainy street corner years ago. The most iconic part of the Angelina Jordan brand is also her most vulnerable. She always performs barefoot. In an industry that is obsessed with high fashion and six-figure footwear, her bare feet are a jarring sight on a Las Vegas stage. But this isn't a gimmick. It's a barefoot for princess mandate that she has upheld since she was a small child. The story is well known to her Angeliners, but in 2026, it carries more weight than ever. After meeting a young girl in the rain who had no shoes, Angelina gave hers away and vowed to never wear them on stage until every child in the world has a pair. It's a noble, almost impossible goal, but it serves as her moral compass in a world that is often devoid of one. Critics have occasionally called it performative, but the fact that she has stuck to it for over a decade, even when performing for royalty or in cold climates, proves its sincerity. In 2026, she has expanded this mission into a global foundation, using the proceeds from her independent album sales to fund footwear and education for children in developing nations. It's the ultimate full-circle moment. The girl who used her voice to get noticed is now using her platform to provide for those who are unheard. It's this emotional connection that keeps her fans so fiercely loyal, even when the mainstream media focuses on her legal drama. But as we look toward the end of 2026, the question remains, can she maintain this purity, Or will the weight of the industry finally force her to put on the shoes of a corporate pop star? As we wrap up this special report, the state of Angelina Jordan's career in 2026 is a study in contradictions. She is a multimillionaire who performs without shoes. She is a global superstar who is currently being sued by her own national broadcaster. She is a jazz singer who is topping pop charts independently. What we are witnessing is the birth of a new kind of celebrity, one who isn't manufactured in a boardroom, but grown in the soil of the internet and watered by a genuine, almost haunting talent. Whether she's dealing with accusations surfacing from disgruntled former partners or navigating the security scares that have defined her recent years, one thing is certain: she isn't going anywhere. Her voice has evolved into something that transcends genre, and her business model is becoming a blueprint for other young artists who want to break free from the standard industry contracts. We'll be watching closely to see if her 2026 European tour actually happens, or if the shadow threats will once again force her into a strategic retreat. But for now, Angelina Jordan remains the barefoot queen of a digital empire, proving that you don't need a label or shoes to walk the path to greatness.